Week 7, Set 1, SWYK 2. Glad you got through that first SWYK. All right, moving on. We've been given a challenge to write an equation in standard form, of course, of the parabola that has the same shape as the graph. Okay, so this is similar to the last question we worked on in the last section. They give us the choice of an a value of 3 or -3. So how do we determine? Well, they said it's a minimum. Oh, minimum means it must open up, which means it has to be the positive a value. They already said that the minimum was 13, so that's the y value of the vertex at x equals 12. So we know that the vertex is at 12, 13. So we can start out with vertex form right here, okay? And you'll notice that I did my little box thing, right? We know that we're taking x minus 12 times x minus 12. So in order to kind of shortcut the work, I just put the box directly underneath, and I wrote the other x minus 12 along the side, and I know I'm going to use these as the columns. And you can start to see that I match things up. X times x, -12 times x, -12 times x, -12 times -12 gives me positive 144 in the corner. And then I can continue on with the process of adding like terms. We've got x squared minus 24x because those two terms are alike. And then the 144, and of course then I'm going to just start distributing. And then you can add the like terms at the very end. So, same song and dance we saw before, and we end up with our answer that we can put in our answer box. Okay, next question. Given a picture, could we come up with its equation? Well, let's look at the picture and see what kind of information we can come up with. First of all, we came up with the vertex, right? 0, -3. All right, so we got the vertex. That's good. Using our little 1a, 3a method of graphing, we can see that when you moved 1 to the left, or you could go 1 to the right, you drop down 1 unit before you hit the graph. That means our a value is -1. So now we have all the pieces that we need, right? So we've got our a value -1. We know that 0 is the h, so we can plug that in, and then the k is on the outside. This can be simplified a little bit, right? We know what x minus 0 is. That's just plain old x. And when you square it, you get x squared. But don't forget, we're multiplying by -1. A lot of times you won't see them put the 1, but you know it's there. So it is a negative x squared minus. Why do I have a +3? Oh my goodness. What's wrong with me? I chose the wrong one. It should be this one. Whew. I'm glad I realized I made a mistake. All right, wanted to take you back a little bit and do some factoring with you, kind of refresh some skills. Next week we're going to get into a bunch of factoring, and I need you to be good at it. So I just thought I'd introduce you, kind of, brush off the cobwebs from Algebra 1. So we have a trinomial in standard form, and we want to break it down into 2 binomial or linear factors. We've got one linear factor here, a second linear factor there. We need things that multiply together to give us the constant, which is 20. Now, that means they're either both positive or they're both negative. But they have to add up to +9. Add up to +9. So the only way that could happen is if they were both positive. Okay, so I've written out a few factors here on the side. 20 and 1, 10 and 2, 5 and 4. Those are all things that multiply together to give me 20. But only one of them adds up to 9, and that would be that one right there. Now, I'm going to put the 5 there and the 4 there. Is there anything wrong with me switching those two? Is there anything wrong with me putting x plus 4 times x plus 5? The answer is no. Since both the signs are the same, it won't matter whether the 4 goes and the 5 are switched. Once that changes, if we got a plus in one and a minus in the other, yeah, it's going to make a difference. Okay, but as long as they're both positive or both negative, then that's not going to make a difference. On this next example, you see that they have to multiply together to give us -36, but you notice that the middle term was missing. That middle term is not even there, so that must mean that it's a 0. So they have to multiply together to give me a negative number. Well, that's only going to happen if one's positive and one's negative. And they have to add up to 0. Well, if you start thinking about the factors of 36, the only two that would cause, that would add up to 0 would be positive 6 and negative 6. If you start doing other things like 12 and 3, and it doesn't matter which one you make negative, you're not going to get 0. Or 18 and 2, or 36 and 1, none of that, or 9 and 4. None of those are going to give you what you need to add up to. So this is our answer. X plus 6, x minus 6. Does it matter whether the plus goes first and the minus goes second? Absolutely not. That doesn't matter at all in this case because it'll still work out. All right, so they have to add up to 4, multiply together to give me 4, which means they both have to be the same. But since they have to add up to a negative number, I know that both of these are going to be negative. So can you tell me factors of 4 that add up to 4? I guess it's going to have to be 2 and 2, right? Now, there is another way we can write this. And I'm going to guess Math Excel might ask you to write it like this. Because when you have something times the same thing, we could write it as a square. So I'm going to take a guess that they're going to ask you for this. But there's absolutely nothing different than that right there. I guess you could try it the first way, and if it tells you you're wrong, which you're not wrong, then you could go with this way and see if Math Excel is happier. Yeah, sometimes it's like a nasty, angry dragon. Okay, in question 6, they ask me to factor. This is more simple. This is just looking for a greatest common factor. You can see that both of these terms have a 2 and an x. When we say that we're pulling it out, we're really dividing. We're going through and we're dividing each one of these by 2x. When we do that, here we'll have 7x plus 2. Now, if you don't believe me, distribute it back in and see what you get. You better go right back to the beginning. Now, I don't want you to distribute it back in. That's just for checking purposes. This is your final factored form answer. Okay, that's it for this SWYK. Have a great day until your next SWYK. I know that was really cheesy.